Hey Lisa, thanks so much for coming on the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast. I am so excited to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and have our chats.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we connected. My friend Amy Slinker Smith, who is the reason that I do any of this to begin with, because she came and spoke to my mom's group one day, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can teach people about decluttering. Like this is amazing. So she introduced us, and I just really love all of the encouragement that you are bringing to the world, and would love if you could introduce yourself and tell us about you and your family, kind of how you serve others, and maybe like one thing you like to do for fun.
Okay, well, that's quite a lot. Um, I've always been an encourager. It's like one of those things that, from a spiritual perspective, that I always had and never knew it until I really started thinking about it. But that's me. I have a podcast called The Sunshine Cafe. My name is Lisa Roers. I'm married to an amazing man whose name is John, and he is just my life partner, just in the most beautiful way. We have a very interesting how we met story. And the two of us, we have a 15-year-old son who is also just awesome and a lot of fun. And what do we do for fun? Well, our house is full of music. I'm a professional musician. My husband's a professional musician. Our son is kind of ramping into his own, coming into his own on that respect as well, and being really involved in music. And so we love to do music and we love to experiment with things there, whether it's at church or some side gigs that we do. And it's just a blast when you can sing and make music with people you love.
Oh, that is so great. I pretend to be a musician sometimes. What I mean by that is I teach a preschool music class and find that 2 to 4 year olds are not very picky when it comes to how I sing. So, something that definitely I enjoy, but I love that just being in a musical house. That sounds really fun. We usually the boys have some sort of strange music playing right now. Weird Al Yankovic is their favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird Al's got a lot of great songs.
I
They're
know,
fun.
yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But I just would love it. I we always ask guests here about their stories of overcoming overwhelm. And this could be something with motherhood. It could be something I know that you have some things with your personal health journey and kind of figuring some things out there. But just any time where you really felt very overwhelmed, you were kind of raising that a white flag of surrender. You're like, I don't know what's going on here, God. Like something needs to change. And then what did you do? Kind of like what was that tipping point and what did you do to make the change? Just any example that you have about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, we could probably talk for a few hours about that. I want to start by just saying overwhelm is something we all have. So if anyone's out there feeling like, I'm the only one, no, you are in such good company. And there's so many chapters and seasons in our life that have different flavors of that overwhelm. When you first asked me that question, the first thing that popped into my mind was actually my senior year of college because the the role reversals in my life changed or switched really early in life because my mom got sick with multiple sclerosis when I was like 7 years old. And so that mother-daughter relationship flipped a lot sooner, probably a couple of decades sooner than it does for most people. Usually people aren't starting to take care of their parents till they're in their 50s, maybe 60s. I was taking care of mom when I was in my teens. And so it was a real big switch for me. And my grandmother kind of became the person I would go to and the person who would take me shopping and the person who kind of filled that mom need. But my senior year of college, I was taking a full load plus I had 5 extra credits over J term. I was trying to accomplish a 4.0 and graduate with that. And so I had all of that pressure. I was working 2 jobs to try to pay for college. And then my mom had this huge MS attack where she lost her ability to walk. She lost her feeling on every side. She was in the hospital learning how to rewalk. I was having to handle all of that. And then I get a phone call from grandma saying that she's got cancer. And I'm like, holy cats, Lord, I can't take on any more. It was so overwhelming. And so, and similarly to that kind of in my own health journey where it was just one thing after another after another. I woke up one morning and I couldn't move. And then I started getting leg ulcers, skin ulcers on my legs. If you don't know what those are, I just want to say congratulations. I hope you never do because they are miserable, slow to heal, and extremely painful. So all of these things were coming up and kind of similar to that college year. There was so much overwhelm and I didn't know what to do. So how did I handle that? Well, that's a great question because how do you handle any of that? And I think it's a revelation that we don't have control over life as much as we like to think we do sometimes. And yeah, we just got 4 inches of fresh snow here, so this is a really good visual example. But last night I was driving home from a rehearsal, and when I started the rehearsal, it was just raining. But by the time I finished the rehearsal, it was snowing so hard I literally could not see the road. It was just a whiteout condition. And halfway through my hour plus drive home, I was gripping the steering wheel so hard that my hands fell asleep. I'm like, Lisa, let go. Let go. Take a breath. That is the visual I want people to hear about how to handle overwhelm. When you are overwhelmed, you are gripping life with such strength in your hands, in your body, in your mind, in your heart, that everything's kind of fallen asleep because there's no blood flow. And you really do need to just open it up, take a breath, let the vehicle of life kind of take you through the snowstorm, and do know that you just, number one, you don't have control over everything and you can only do what you can do. So you do your very best and you release the rest to God. You ask Him for help through the process. And you acknowledge that, yes, we have plans, but I think it's Proverbs 16:9 that says, we make our plans, but God directs our steps.
Hmm.
So don't be upset if the plan doesn't work out the way you thought it did. I didn't end up getting the 4.0. I got a 397, but I didn't get quite the 4.0. And grandma did get cancer and passed, and mom did have MS and it lasted for 50 years. But you just take one step at a time. And much like that car analogy or literal and figurative analogy, there was nothing I could do but just release my hands from the steering wheel so I wasn't gripping it so hard and just breathe and let the vehicle move through the storm. So sometimes I think when you get really overwhelmed, you just kind of need to take that type of approach. What are the things I have control over? Hold the steering wheel loosely, pray. I did a lot of praying last night on the way home and just let it be different than you might have thought it was going to be
Hmm.
and acknowledge that that's okay. It doesn't have to be, the plan doesn't have to come out the way you thought it was gonna. That's just, it's great sometimes if it works out that way, but it doesn't have to work out that way. Maybe the new way it's going to reveal itself is actually even better.
Yeah, I love that visual so much too, because I always have a tendency, like when I start getting stressed out, overwhelmed, that I'm clutching, right? And just like the white knuckling my way through. And it's been a journey for me to be able to release. And that kind of brings me to my, next question when it comes to being in reactive mode and feeling like we're constantly putting out fires, because I know that that has happened to me through many parts of my motherhood. And it's the same kind of thing where I have a tendency when I'm in that putting out fires mode to try to control the situation. Like, what can I do? What can I do? This needs to change. I end up being really snippy with my kids. I end up like saying things that I regret. And it's just because I don't like being reactive. I don't like being in that position. But it's not just me being snippy with my kids, it's affecting, I know, my health, my physical, my emotional health. And I was just wondering if you could share, like being in that constant reaction mode where we're constantly, again, just like putting out the fires. What impact does that have on our health? Either what you have experienced yourself or what you've done research wise to kind of learn more about it.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. It's actually huge, huge, huge. I'm not a doctor, but I am in a doctorate program for natural medicine. I actually am currently a student in that process. And the more I learn, Emily, about what that stress does to our bodies, the more convinced I am that people need what you're doing on the side to help declutter. People need regulation. People need to help figure out how to regulate their expectations, their hopes, their dreams, their desires, and their self expectations, the social norm that we have to say yes to everything. And because how does your question, how does it affect our bodies? In enormous ways. Because our bodies were, if you go back to way back to where, it's just the simplicity of us and the earth, our brains are programmed and wired to protect us. And if we are constantly running from the tiger or the bear or the snake or the mosquitoes, wherever you might live, you're constantly stressed, and that high level of cortisol is actually creating inflammation in your body. And in some ways it's a good thing, because if you're running from the tiger, if you're running from the thing that's going to potentially affect your liveliness, you want every bit of energy diverted to your ability to run away. However, if you live in that state and you're constantly diverting resources from the things you really need to do to keep your body healthy just to respond to the fires, well, then those things that aren't getting the energy that they need are going to suffer. So we're not going to detoxify. We're not going to um, fix cells and do autophagy where we get rid of old cells. And we're going to have all these radical cells that are running around, and all of a sudden they're going to start creating tumors. And all of a sudden we're going to have cancer. And all of a sudden, no, I say all of a sudden in kind of quotes because none of that happens all of a sudden. But when we are constantly in that fight or flight type of reaction, we are really putting our health on the line. And we have to realize that it's not a place you want to stay long. So if you are feeling like you are in that state of overwhelm, okay, first of all, good. You recognize it, you're listening to your body, and that's a good thing. Figure out how to get out of that state because you don't want to live there.
Yeah, I was actually, it's interesting you talk about, diverting processes like they're supposed to be taking place as far as like detoxifying. And we had kind of a weird thing happen last night where my son's smoke alarm went off for no apparent reason at like midnight. So it's like beep, 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 and everyone wakes up. And then I was having a really hard time going back to sleep because my mind was kind of rehearsing all of the things that were going on. And oh, I forgot about this. And what about this? And oh, there's, my son has this test coming up. And so my body is supposed to be resting, my mind is supposed to be resting. And yet, because of kind of the stress I was feeling, it was diverting those resources from doing, what they're supposed to do. And you were mentioning just like if we're constantly in the fight or flight or we're constantly in the reactive mode, I find that there's not that space between the like the thing that happens and our response or reaction. There's like, so, and this is what happens, especially with my kids. Like it's like that one last thing that they're saying, and I'm like, and I just sort of react and yell rather
Right.
than
Well, that is a
mindfully
reaction.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Instead
that
of like mindfully responding. And I just, I'm curious when it comes to like building resilience as a mom and not constantly being in that reactive mode, how can we start lengthening that space between the stimulus and the response so that we can kind of come from a more mindful place rather than this stress out, constantly reactive mode?
Sure. That's a great question too. And first of all, can I just say, don't let your kids run the household. You are a mom, be the mom. You are the parent, the mom and the dad. Be the mom and the dad. Your kids do not get to run the house. And as a matter of fact, you're really going to help them in life if you can help them start taking responsibility for their own
Yeah.
things. And some of that comes, I mean, that starts when they are babies. And I literally mean that. We started helping our son understand responsibility when he was just a little kid. We'd explain things to him. No, you cannot throw your things on the floor here, and here's why. No, you cannot do these things, and here's why. And those lessons that he learned then are helping us now have a very well-rounded teenager who actually contributes. And he feels bad when dad and I are working hard on things and he's not able to contribute. So, first of all, that's the first thing. Don't let your kids run the house. The second is don't say yes to everything your kids want you to do. I have friends of mine, unfortunately, who have their kids and they're in three different sports and they have three kids and all the kids are in two or plus different sports. That is a problem right there of boundaries.
Yeah.
You need boundaries. You're not helping yourself and your kids are not being helped either. I'm sorry to tell you, I'll be the first one here to just break the news to you. Your kid is not going to be a professional baseball, basketball, and football player. They're just not. They're not going to be. Have them choose a sport, have them really get into it, have them really enjoy it. But there's just not enough room or capacity
Yeah.
in your life to be the sports shuttle for nine sports if you have three kids and they're all doing three sports. So I think a lot of these things, Emily, we invite into our life, the chaos we invite into our world when we don't mindfully sit down with your family and say, okay, here's the capacity. Here's what we have. We have three kids. We've got capacity for three sports.
Yeah.
That's it. And how are you going to, in the midst of those sports, how are you going to contribute to the other things that the house needs to have done? The garbage, the dishes, the laundry, the cleaning, the maintaining, the lawn needs to be mowed, the windows need to be cleaned, the plants need to be watered. How are you guys going to participate with those things so I can be a chaperone and a shuttle for you to all the different activities you want to do. So I think you really bring them into the mix. And the reason I
Mhm.
think this is so important, Emily, is because so many parents, sometimes parents get too much into the enabling and you're doing everything for your kids and they don't know how to make a scrambled egg. They don't know how to vacuum their room or clean their home. They go off to college. They don't know how to cook anything. They don't know how to clean anything. They don't know how to balance their finances or pay for anything. They don't even know what an investment is. So we're not equipping our kids with tools. This is like apprenticeship here. When
Mhm.
they're, as soon as they get to be about 10, they should be really part of the family and the family responsibilities. And I think if you do those things and you make those mindful choices about how many activities people are involved in and how much activity you're taking on versus dad and the children, I think if you share those, you start to realize, first of all, they learn and you realize what you can take on and what you can't. And that starts to take the noise of that chaos down a little bit and everybody is participating. And it ends up feeling like everyone's contributing and the kids feel really part of the solution instead of just existing.
Yeah. We have been working a lot with our boys on that too, and just having them be reminded of why it's important to contribute to the family and why it's important to learn these things. My youngest, we're doing the shoe tying right now. And most days he's like, "Can't you just do it for me?" And we're like, "No, you need to be able to learn. This is like a
Yes, I
basic."
can,
Yeah.
but I shouldn't.
Right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And just, again, it seems like these little things. And a lot of times I feel like as moms, we're like, well, we're running late. So, like, I'm just going to do it. Or, like, I don't want to deal with the nagging. So I'm just going to do it. But like you said, we're not doing ourselves any favors. We're not doing our kids any favors. And when you're constantly in reactive mode, a lot of it is not having that margin, which is so important. And part of having the margin is being able to empower others to be able to do some of the things that they need to do. So that's really
Mhm.
helpful. And I think that that's something I definitely can get behind. And the part that I struggled the most, and we talked about this a little bit before we hit record, is more about the self-talk that I have and the negative thoughts or the stories that I'm telling myself as far as like being able to do something or being able to shift or to change. I tend to sometimes have a very fixed mindset about things and instead of having that growth mindset, and I get discouraged about like things in parenting or maybe things with my health, and I'm just like, well, this is just how it is. Or, I guess I just need
Mhm.
to figure out a way to deal with this because it's not going to change. And what has been sort of your experience, and then also kind of what is happening from a health and kind of scientific perspective as far as like the impact of our thoughts and how we see change and our ability to change with being able
Mhm.
to I guess, reach our goals and like the things that we want to do because it's very easy to have that like self-defeating perspective because it happens to me a lot.
Oh, goodness, it happens to all of us. But let me just say that God gave us a great answer for this. He created structure. He created structure when he created the world, right? On the first day, he did this. On the second day, he did this. On the third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, seventh day, he rested. So create, if you are finding yourself, you're in that state of overwhelm and you're starting to really self-doubt, check your systems and your processes, check your structure. Is there a way that you can create a little structure? It doesn't have to be anything heavy and it doesn't have to be ironclad where you never are flexible with it. But if you create yourself a light structure for meals, for sports, for seasons of the year when you're going to travel, if you're going to travel or not, those those light structures will really help you a lot. And then you can look forward and you can say, okay, next month I've got this structure happening. We want to be traveling around spring break, or we want to travel over the summer. We want to do a little road trip here on those days that you have off. So you can plan a little better instead of it having just hit you last minute and you're just always reacting like we were talking about earlier. So that's one thing. Really let yourself embrace a little structure. And I know some people who are really anti-structure. And I just want to say, if you live in a home, you are embracing structure.
Mhm.
Though there are certain rooms you do certain things in, and just let yourself not look at it as such a limiting factor, but more of a liberating factor.
Yeah.
Like if I have a plan, a light, easy, lightweight plan that I can be flexible with, but can kind of help me take all of these thoughts and emotions and tasks and things to do and kind of lay them into this framework, I will be a much healthier thinker. And that brings me to my point about what is it doing to our brain. I want people to understand that. Let me just use a quick example. You ever remember playing a board game? You play a board game, and the first time you play it, nobody knows what's going on. You're like all these pieces and parts and cards, and we're all looking at the directions with these furrow browed, and we're trying to figure out how it goes. And we play, we play with your cards open so everybody can see the hand. You try to walk through it once, right? And then the next time you play it, it's a little easier. It kind of makes sense. The third time you play it, now you're rocking and rolling and it just feels really comfortable. That uncomfortable feeling you get when you're learning a new board game, or maybe another example would be, you're trying a hoverboard or a ripstick or a skateboard or even a bicycle. That uncomfortable feeling where you're like, I do not know how to do this. This is really uncomfortable. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that is the feeling in your brain of building new neurotransmitter connections. It's called neuroplasticity. It's when the neurotransmitters in your brain are starting to make new connections. So your brain knows how to do this the next time you do it. So when you start feeling that discomfort, you can celebrate, hey, brain is learning new things. This is really, really good because the more your brain learns new things now, the less Alzheimer's you're going to have, the less dementia you're prone to have, the less forgetfulness you're going to have. It's this whole mind thing that we have up in our heads is a whole different playground. We have to lift weights to keep our muscles strong. We have to do squats and do run a little bit, get the heart rate going, and we all know that. We all know we need those kind of exercises to keep our bodies fit. But our brains also need to be fit. And the only way we do that is by learning new things. So that creates the resilience to change because change is always going to be here. We're always going to have change. If you want to be really resilient to change, the best thing to do is to constantly be learning new things. And what you end up finding out, Emily, is that you can embrace that discomfort and you can start feeling comfortable with that discomfort to say, oh, that's just my brain learning new things. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a heel. I'm capable of hard things. This is just my brain learning. So I would say those are the two things. It's really give yourself a little structure and then make sure along with all the other things you're doing to take care of your body that you're taking care of your brain. And there's a lot we could talk about there as far as feeding and fueling your body for health and resilience to change, because that's a whole nother level of things. that's really, really critical. So depending how much time we have, we could probably dive into that a little too.
Yeah. Well, how about we do that? How about we kind of wrap up with that? Because I feel like, again, for the overwhelmed mom, they're like, I don't have time to eat, period, let alone like doing things that are going to support my body and my brain. But what are some, I guess, like simple things that people can do to kind of make some of those shifts so we can start supporting our brain health and
Yeah.
also that neuroplasticity?
Okay, let's talk food and let's talk movement really quick. I'll start with movement first because movement is such a hard thing to get into the day, especially when you're a busy mom and you got so many things going. But you are sitting in front of the microwave waiting for such and such to unthaw, or the toaster waiting for the toast to toast. So while you're doing that, I know you might feel a little goofy. Do 5 squats. Just do them. You're waiting for the coffee to brew. Do some leg lifts. Do some torso twists. Use those waiting moments throughout the day to build in movement to your day. If you're in the car a lot, there is isometric kind of exercises you can do to just squeeze your thighs and squeeze your muscles and then release them. And as simple as it sounds, working those kinds of things in throughout the day, you would be surprised. You can get much more even than an hour long workout just by mixing those things in throughout the day. If you work at home, set a timer for an hour and every hour just get up and do 10 squats. It's really simple. It gets you up, it gets the blood moving. It's just such a good thing for your body. Incorporate this into your family. Have your family and your kids, especially if they're little, they love to do these kinds of things with you. And so, have the little ones do some squats with you or some lunges across the room, and you're helping them learn to embrace moving as well. That will help them the rest of their life. So you're giving them a gift by helping them move more. Now, I could talk about that for an hour. That's all I'll say about that, just to kind of introduce the topic. The other thing is fuel and how we're fueling our bodies. And I would say it's really one of the critical things. I think we're starting to see a general trend of people starting to pay attention to this. But if you are, for example, histamine resistant and intolerant, and you've got an histamine issue, you can have a piece of food that is a histamine releaser or high in histamine, and you can feel depressed within the next 4 to 5 hours. It triggers a response that fast. Same with sugar. If you are a sugar person or you don't have time, we're just going to go to Culver's and we're just going to have the thing and then we're going to have the ice cream. You will have a reaction after that. Now, what's interesting about fuel like that is people will say, I never have a reaction. I eat, junk food all the time. I never have a reaction. That is because your body is so inflamed and your taste buds are so in tune to the bad food that you don't even know it anymore. So the interesting thing is once you strip those things back and you start eating cleaner, and I'm just saying, just eat, vegetables, grass-fed meats if you can, pasture-raised chicken if you can. Organic really matters. It really does matter. The less chemicals you have in your body, the better. And we can't take all of it. We can't get rid of it all. We live in a very toxic world, but do the things you can do. Stop wearing
Mhm.
perfume. Stop wearing, if you wanted some kind of make something, wear something that feels a little special, put an essential oil on your body instead. Those toxic fumes are really impacting you and they can limit your ability to handle change. They can limit your ability to take on, it basically takes your coping cup and dumps it out, half of it. So you only have now half of a coping cup and you can't handle your ability to handle your capacity for handling difficult things is just cut in half. So when you're fueling your body with seed oils and vegetable oils and highly processed things and fried foods and all the different things that we know we shouldn't be eating. And
Mhm.
I hardly even need to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, because I really shouldn't have another piece of pizza, but I'm gonna. So all those things. And I will tell you, once you get to a point where you can go like 2 weeks, if you can give yourself 2 weeks to eat really clean, your entire body composition changes, your taste buds change, and you will start having cravings for much different things.
Mhm.
But you do need to replace those favorite recipes that are not so good for you with recipes that really are. And once you do that and you've kind of replaced those in your family favorites, your whole family is going to start craving better things. We have a rule around here, and all of my son's friends know it. We don't have snacks. We don't have any bad snacks. The only snacks you're going to find in our house are dried fruits or whole fresh fruits. And so literally now our friends, my son's friends will come over and they will bring him the Reese's Pieces peanut butter cup because, what a Reese's peanut butter cup or the bag of chips because we just don't buy them. And I'm okay with him having them once in a while, but he's not going to have them in the house. So it's a little bit more of a special thing. And just for one anecdote, I just want to share with you to drive this point home. My son came to me the other day and he said, Mom, can we have some more fresh fruit that's constantly on hand, like some honeydew, some bananas, some apples? I just feel a lot better when I eat those versus the chips or the pretzels or the whatever it is he was eating before. So it's taken 15 years, but this kid is finally catching on and realizing that he feels better when he's not eating the junk food. So those are the things. Work movement into your day. Really understand that what you're putting into your body really, really does matter. I mean, you wouldn't dump Lysol into your plant and expect your plant to live. So why breathing it in? Why would you expect your body to react any different way? It's what we put into our bodies or around our bodies or on them really matters. Sorry, and
Yeah.
I probably went a little longer than I should have, but that I could talk about another hour about just the fuel side of it as well.
Yeah, no, that's really great reminders. I actually, some of the things like the histamine thing was kind of new to me, so that's good to know. But also, just you were talking about your coping cup. I love that. I've never heard of that before, but just we want to set ourselves up for success, just knowing that you said, things are always going to happen, change is always going to happen. So let's set ourselves up for success to be ready and resilient. And part of that is how we're fueling ourselves, how we're supporting our health and everything like that. So those are all wonderful reminders and just really appreciate you coming on the show today. And I was hoping you could share where everyone can connect with you if they want to learn more and listen to the podcast and all the fun things.
Yeah, so the podcast is Sunshine Cafe, and it's really just the whole platform is about sharing and stories that encourage or inspire. So, we touch on everything from health and wellness to business to relationships to faith, and a lot of different topics, but always there's an element of victory and helping or hearing stories about people getting unstuck and moving into a place of victory. So that's the podcast, that's Sunshine Cafe, and you can find that on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And then let's see, my website's lisaroers.com. And while I do spell it Roers, you can also go Roars. You'll get to the same place. So lisaroers.com is my website, and you can find out all the different things that I do there. And you're welcome actually to email me as well. And that's just Lisa at lisaroers.com, Roers. And I'd love to have your listeners reach out to me if there's any way I can either encourage them or support them in their journey, because I really want to help reach out and equip people for success.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'll make sure to link to all of that in the show notes. And thank you again for coming on the show. It was so fun chatting with you.
Likewise, Emily, thank you so much for having me.